Hi there, welcome back to How to Write Science Fiction That Doesn't Suck. I'm Rick Partlow. Um, Probably don't need to introduce you. If you're watching my 31st or whatever this is video, you probably know who I am. I am the author of 59 books currently. And today we are going to talk about the year in review, both for me and for you. Let me start with me because I know what I did. I'm just going to guess what you did. So this year I've written a little over 930,000 words. Not quite a million. I probably could have written a million if I'd wanted to, but I decided at some point this year not to kill myself. Not to work myself to death. So I took it easy, and some people will laugh at the idea that writing 930,000 words in a year is easy, but it was actually a break from a couple of years. 2 years ago, I wrote 1 million words and a dozen books. This year, I wrote 9 books and 930,000 words. And I actually meant to write 10 books this year, but I put off Drop Trooper 12 until January. I finished plotting it, outlining it. I finished my 59th book right before Christmas, actually right before my daughter arrived on the 15th of December to spend Christmas with us. Can't talk. And I made up my mind right then that I was taking the rest of the year off from writing books. I've been outlining. Since then, I've outlined Drop Trooper 12, and I've started outlining the first book in a new series that I'm doing. And I'm going to outline one other book in another new series. But I'm going to hold off on starting new books until the first of the year, which is only 3 more days. So I took kind of it wasn't a vacation because I'm still working, but it was just like taking my foot off the accelerator, I guess. I've only written like about 1,000 words a day in these outlines. I'm not killing myself. I'm just sort of cruising. So this year I finished 9 books, and I've done. I don't want to overshare. That's why I'm thinking carefully about how I say that. I've done well this year. I did not do as well this year as I did last year. Last year, I made more money than. Well, obviously, I made more money than I had in a year as a writer. This year, I stepped back a little bit from that. And there's reasons for that don't have to do with the quality of my writing. I don't believe anyway. Last year, I got a advance. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. An advance from an audio book producer to write a trilogy. That trilogy was the Gates of Eternity trilogy, which I've completed. And that was a one-time advance. It came 2021, and it counted for that year tax-wise and for my income. So that was a substantial amount. Also, this is also more of a marketing thing and business thing, but last year I made a pretty good amount from my backlist that I still had self-published on Amazon. Beginning of this year, that dropped off a cliff. I believe it had something to do with Amazon changing the way they recommend books, because it happened to a lot of people. And since I do not have the time nor the expertise to market those books individually myself, I signed them over to Athon Books, my publisher, for Contact Front, and a bunch of other Drop Trooper and a bunch of other series. And took them off. I took them out of print, and some of them have already been relaunched. What was used to be called Interstellar Bounty Hunter was relaunched as Star Bounty. The Tales of the Acheron series was relaunched as Acheron. Glory Boy and the Birthright trilogy were relaunched, put together in a 4-book series. Recon is coming out the end of January, the first Recon book. So the 4 Recon books are coming out, and then Psy-War trilogy. It's all coming out this year. But since those books were not on the market for a while they're being relaunched, that income was also not going into my account. So this year was not quite as much as last year, but it was still great. It was still plenty of money to live on. So I have nothing to complain about, but I'm just saying that 2021 was a special year financially for me, and 2022 is still special, but it didn't quite reach that high. I'm hopeful next year will be, even bigger than this year, but we'll see what happens. It might go down again. That's what happens in publishing. You can't count on your income staying at the same level. Okay. So I finished off a few series this year also. I finished off Earth at War. Earth at War changed hands. It was being published by Permantha Press, which was by a good friend of mine, but he was getting out of that business, so those rights went over to Aethon Books. So now they are publishing basically everything I have out except for Seeds of Gaia and the Sunkiller trilogy with J.N. Chaney's Variant Press, or Variant Publishing, or Variant Books. I forget, it's Variant. So I have to say that it's kind of weird after all these years having almost all of my books with one publisher, because I've always been a big fan of spreading things out, not having all my eggs in one basket. But I trust the people at Aethon. They're good guys. They've done right by me. So I'm not nervous about having things in their hands in particular. It's just having everything in one place, So, but I feel like if the worst happened, not that I expect Aethon to do anything bad, but if something happened to their business, some sort of disaster, and they couldn't publish those books anymore, that I could work something out, that I write fast enough and I have enough connections now that I could still make a living. So I'm not really nervous about the fact that everything except 4 books is with Aethon. This year, my plans are a little bit more fluid than they were last year. Beginning of 2021, I knew exactly what I had to do. I had 10 books that had to be written under contract. Now only one of them needs to be written. Drop Trooper 12. Drop Trooper 12 is not going to be the end of the Drop Trooper series, not until people stop buying it, or I die. And even then, they'd probably get a ghostwriter. But that is the only series right now that I have a contract for. That is also very strange, and I am a little bit more worried about that. Not worried that I won't get more contracts. I know Aethon and I have a great relationship, but it's just weird not having things set out in front of me. I finished up Earth at War. I finished up Sun Killer trilogy, which would have been more books, to be honest, but it didn't quite perform as well as we wanted it to. I mean, it didn't do bad. Trust me, it made some money, but um, we were looking for something that made a little bit more of a splash. And given how many other series I had, we both agreed that we wanted to try again and do something that could achieve more financially. So we are going to try something else. That's one of the things that I'm working on plotting. But it is worrying not having a bunch of contracts and having everything laid out in front of me. Not so much worrying financially as it is I'm worried that I will get complacent because the last couple of years I have had my whole schedule pretty much laid out for me. I'd had deadlines and contracts, and I knew they had to get done. And the way my work ethic is, if something's there and I know I have to do it, then I'll do it. I'm not going to put it off. I will just get it done. But also, I know that my personality and me not having something laid out in front of me to get done means that I am not as eager to do it. So one of the things that I'm doing right now is outlining, besides Dropship, I'm outlining 2 different new series. The one I'm working on right this second is going to be at least 3 books, probably 6, depending on how well the first 3 do. But the other one, I don't really know what it's going to be about. It's going to be military science fiction, but that's all I got. I'm also debating a new output method that I've wanted to try for a couple of years, but I haven't been able to do because of the contracts, the deadlines. So my current method of writing is I will do one of 2 things, depending on how fast I think I can write the book. If I'm working on 2 different books at the same time, I'll write 2,000 words in each. And if I am concentrating on just one book, trying to get it done, I'll just write 3,000 words in that one book. See, I know, just knowing myself after so many years, that I can write 3,000 words in a day, no problem. But I also know that the last 1,000 is the biggest problem, because after 2,000 words in one book in a day, I start to get a little frayed around the edges. That's why 2,000 in one book, 2,000 in another is not as hard as writing 3,000 in just one book. But also, I know that I can write 1,000 words, as the saying goes, standing on my head. So I have had this idea of writing 3 books at a time, 1,000 words per day in each of them. And it's going to be slower to finish each book, but by the end of 3 months, I have 3 books done. So it's an average of a book a month. But I would have still have 3 books done at the end of a month, and it wouldn't be as mentally taxing. Since I'm going to be working on 3 different things, this seems like a really good time to start doing it. The only thing that worries me about it is, as I said, it's going to take longer it's not going to take longer on average, but it's going to take longer for me to get a book out there. And a lot of business model that I work on is having a new book out there pretty much every couple months. So that might be taxing my business model. So I'm thinking about that. I've got a couple more days before I decide. I have to get this other 2 outlines done. If I did that, for instance, at the end of March, I would have Drop Trooper 12, the first book in this new series, and the first book in the other new series, all done by the end of March. Um, it would be handier from a production point of view if I could write 3 books in the same series all at the same time, but I cannot do that. That's not going to happen. Um, when I write a series, I do not, I have an idea of what the next book is going to be about, but I do not have every detail because even though I outline, still things pop up, changes, things that just come to you while you're writing. And for instance, in Drop Trooper 11, which comes out this month, there is a character who dies. And I always knew they were going to die. That was set in stone from the time I started writing book 9. But the way I had them originally dying was totally different from the way they actually died. And that is not something that just happened as I was writing. I generally don't make big plot changes while I'm writing because I do that in the outline. But in the outlining stage, I realized that when I was working on the outline for book 11, that death was supposed to happen in book 12. And book 12 was supposed to have a different kind of ending. And I realized that book 11 didn't have enough consequential plot in it yet. So I took the stuff from book 12 and put it in book 11, the stuff I had originally done in the series outline, put it in book 11. That's something that I've done with this series a lot because it's a long series. And I outline it in arcs, 1 through 4, 5 through 8, 9 through 12. So when I get to a point where I've gotten done with one book and I'm outlining the next one, because I've got a general idea of what the next book's going to be about. But if I'm out, like for instance, when I wrote book 10, there was some stuff that I intended to go in book 11 in the series outline, but I didn't want to put too much filler in book 10. Things seemed to be going too slow when I was outlining it. So I just took some of the stuff from book 11 and put it in book 10, just like I did from 12 to book 11. It's kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, but you have to trust yourself that you will come up with something new. And that comes with practice. So, my opinion would be, my theory on this is that don't hold back something cool for the next book in the series if that means putting filler in the current book in the series. Take that cool thing, put it right there, because the people who are reading this don't want to read filler. They want to read the cool stuff every book. So trust yourself that you're going to be able to make a cool thing for the next book, even if it means changing your series outline that you have, if you outline that far in advance. Okay, so book 12 of Drop Trooper is the end of an arc. I had a choice when I ended this arc whether to try to connect with something from the rest of my that universe, because Drop Trooper is part of a larger universe with 30 some books in it, and it is on the verge of connecting with a plot element from Psy-War trilogy, which was once out but now is not, and is not going to be out till later this year. But I was thinking, I write Drop Trooper pretty fast, so maybe I should wait and I should put another arc in and not have them hook up with that plot element until Psy-War is out, relaunched by Aethon. So I've kind of come up with a different route for them to take. And I'm not 100% certain yet if I'm going to do a whole arc in that route or in that plot line, or if I'm going to jump into that element from Psywar, perhaps like in book 14 or something, or 15. That's something you have to consider when you are plotting out long series, which some of you may not have had the chance to do yet. But if you are successful at this, eventually you'll have to plot out a long series. This is the longest series I have ever written. Wholesale Slaughter, before that, was six books. This is now 12 coming up on. I will tell you that there are huge challenges to keeping a book series fresh at that length. And it's not just you have to come up with ideas for, confrontations, conflicts, enemies, action, try to keep the action fresh. You also have to come up with character arcs. And this is, I finally understand now, something that I resented in a lot of book and TV series and movie series when I was younger. It's like, why do they make the characters suffer this much? For one thing, it wasn't realistic because people in general, even people who have been in war, they will have like one formative big thing they suffer. Like somebody could be in this battle like the Bastogne or something, and it left them maimed or whatever, and it killed their friends. Or they could be in a POW camp and suffer hardship and privation or maybe torture. But that's it. That's the big thing for their life. Nobody in real life ever suffered multiple instances of this. One thing I can't think of anybody who was a POW twice in one war, for instance. It may have happened. I mean, there's probably been Germans who were captured twice, like went on different fronts. But I mean, this kind of long-term, suffering. So I was always, why are these people suffering so much unrealistic tragedy? But now I know why. Because it's hard to keep a series fresh, and you have to come up with character arcs. And suffering is the easiest way. Suffering and tragedy is the easiest way to come up with a character arc. I think it's kind of a lazy way, if I'm being honest. I think that a lot of writers are lazy. I know that's kind of attacking my own tribe, but I'm thinking more TV and movie writers. They get lazy. They're in a writer's room, coming up with ideas. Somebody says, let's have his mother die. Let's have his wife die. Let's have his child die. And that's like, oh yeah, that'll do it. Yeah, but that's lazy. That's just taking shock value and trying to work that into a character arc. Just having somebody die who's close to the main character is an easy way to make a character arc. Not that I haven't killed off characters, but I tend to kill off characters not because of their personal relationship with the main character, because of their professional one. If I'm trying to get a main character to grow, one of the things that you have to do is kick out their supports. If they're a young military officer, since I'm writing military science fiction, and they have superior officers or NCOs or whatever who support them, who make their job easier, who make it so that the decisions they make in the heat of the moment are supported and advised by someone wiser and older and more experienced than them. Well, at some point in their development as an officer and a character, they have to be the one to make those decisions without having to look anywhere else. That's why in Wholesale Slaughter, I killed off Lita Alexander, because she was the person who was a crutch for the main character, for Logan. Um, she was somebody he could look to for advice. He never had to make a tough decision without asking her for advice first. So I had to kill her off because he needed to be able to make those decisions himself. I could have had her, captured or taken out of the action, but it didn't make sense. She was somebody who devoted herself to Logan's family, and she never would have abandoned him. And if she'd been captured, if she'd been a prisoner, he would have devoted himself to freeing her to the exclusion of everything else, which would change the plot. So I didn't see any other choice other than to kill her off. Earth at War. This made a lot of people sad. Even my publisher, from Permantha Press, was very, very sad when I killed off Jambo at the end of book 1. Jambo, James Bowie, was a great character. I loved him. I did not think he was going to be that good of a character. I kind of made him as a throwaway special forces type, but he was great. I loved writing him. I would have loved to have had him around in more books, but he was also the security blanket for Andy Clanton. And Andy had been out of the military for several years, and he had never had any special forces experience. He'd worked with special forces in Venezuela, but he had never been through, special forces qualification. He didn't have that kind of training. And Jambo was his security blanket. Jambo was the crutch he could count on so that he could deal with the military without being part of the military. Because he had decided he didn't want to be in the military anymore and that it had ruined his life. So when the time came that he had to go back in and deal with the alien threat, Jambo was like, a firewall to keep out all the military BS and allow him to be kind of disconnected from it. He wasn't the leader of the Delta team that was assigned to that spaceship, that starship in the book. He was like an advisor. He was a technical advisor. He had helped design the armor, but he wasn't in command of the team. And I needed him to be in command of the team. And he never would have been command of the team if Jambo had been around, because everybody loved Jambo. Everybody respected Jambo. Everybody listened to Jambo. And no matter how much they grew to respect Andy, they would never consider him above Jambo, even though he was an officer and Jambo was a master sergeant. So Jambo had to go. It was tragic. It was kind of a random death, which I didn't like, but that also happens in battle. People die randomly. And it happened. I didn't like him dying randomly, but it wasn't a pointless death because he died at a point in the book where it forced Andy to take control and make a decision right there on the spot of what they were going to do next. So I've gotten on a tangent of killing off characters here, but this is the kind of thing, the decisions you have to make when you're extending a series. You have to find a way to keep your character arc going. And that can sometimes mean killing off support characters who are crutches, who are people who insulate the main character from the decisions that they need to make in order to be the main character, in order to be the linchpin of your universe. Because if somebody else is making those decisions, then you aren't writing the main character. You're writing a point of view character who's just an observer. You need to have a main character who is the linchpin of decision making for what's going on in that book. All right. So this coming year is going to be interesting. I'm going to try something new, and we will see how it works. And knock on wood that it's not going to come back and bite me. But for you, I hope that your year has been productive. I hope that these videos have helped you in some way. I get some comments on them. I feel like there's a lot more views than there are comments. And if this series has, which has been going on since I guess late 2020, I can't remember, maybe early 2021. If it has helped you, if it has provided you any advice that has helped, tell me. Email me, dutyhonorplanet487@gmail.com, or comment on the video. In general, I'm just going to let you know a little inside baseball here. If you comment while the video is premiering in the chat, I never see that because I'm not watching the video as it premieres. I pre-record it, upload it, it premieres, and if people chat there, YouTube doesn't let me see that for the most part. I don't know why. It just always says chat replay disabled for this video. So if you're going to comment on the video and you want me to see it, my advice would be to comment after the video is premiered, comment down at the bottom, and I will see it and I will answer it if you ask a question. Or like I said, you can email me at dutyhonorplanet487@gmail.com. You can get a hold of me on Facebook under facebook.com/dutyhonorplanet. And you can message me there if you like. I don't really answer messages too much on my webpage, which is rickpartlow.com, not because I don't want to, but because there's a software issue where to access that webpage, I have to go through Google Chrome. I can't do it through Microsoft Edge, which is what I mostly use for browsing. So it's kind of a pain in the butt having to deal with the website. So I don't do much there. So I guess that's about it. That's going to be it for the year. I will try to keep up doing more videos in the next year if I can figure out something else to talk about. That's always the problem. When you get 30 some videos in, it's like, what is left to talk about? I do have one other idea that I'll probably record a video on next week sometime. If you have ideas you want me to record videos on, I've said this before, I'm not getting enough of them, suggestions, please email me or comment and say, I would like a video on this. And if it's something to deal with craft, I will definitely try to do it. If it's something to do with the business end of things, I may do it if I consider myself, expert enough at that particular part of the business to give you anything worth hearing. Until then, I hope you guys had a great Christmas. We had a great Christmas. My kids were here. It warmed up considerably, by the way. We got down to -31 on the Wednesday before Christmas. And it's getting up, like yesterday, I got up in the 49 degrees. And right now, I'm recording this at 10 in the morning on December 29th. And it's 32 degrees. And checking the long range forecast, we're not supposed to get another freeze like that this year. Knock on wood. We'll see what happens because you can't always predict that thing that far ahead. But it looks like it's going to be a pretty mild winter for this area. Now that Arctic blast is over. So we had a great Christmas, and it's beautiful out here. And I hope that you guys had a great holiday too, and I hope you have a very happy new year. Uh, if you're going to drink, get a designated driver or stay at home. And let me know if there's anything that I can do for you. Let me know if there's anything you'd like me to talk about, and I will talk to you all later.